This module is entitled, Be the Change You Want to Be. I first realized that change 10 years ago when I took over as Director of Music at Yakima Valley Community College. Those of you who don't know about Yakima Valley, it's a very special place and a lot of similarities to actually Morelia. Yakima is a big agriculture area. We produce apples, we produce cherries, we produce wine, we produce hay, and one of the most important things in my view is lupulu, the hops that you find in your cerveza. They grow 80% of the hops in the world. The apples that you actually buy here in Morelia, if you look on the sticker, says made in Yakima. So with that, there's also a big migrant population, and a lot of those migrant farm workers come actually from Michoacan. To give you an example, there's two schools, high schools, that I want to tell you about. One of them is Toppenish High School, about 20 minutes south of Yakima, and their student population is over 80% Latino or Hispanic, and most of them are coming from first-generation people born in America. Their parents were Mexicans and brought their children over. And there's also a big Native American population, just like the Pueblo people here in Morelia. And in that school, there's only about 5% Caucasian white students. Literally go across the freeway, and the dynamics of the population change drastically to 50% Caucasian, 40% Latino, 2% Native American. Now with that is going to come a lot of cultural differences, but also financial differences. And what I realized in this area, just like how some of you have been witnessing through the United States presidential elections, there's a lot of negativity towards Hispanics. And the change, what I wanted to do in this area is I wanted to bring these diverse communities together. And the platform that I decided to do this was through music. When I first took over from this program, I was also the director of jazz studies, where I had a big band. And as you know, jazz has a history of bringing cultures together. Jazz music was considered the first American art form, but it was also the first music in the United States that created an integrated band, meaning there was blacks and whites playing together. And this was a huge thing, that music can bridge these communities. So what I decided, well, this area has such a huge Hispanic population. Why not change this band into a Latin jazz band, using just like the same instruments that you hear today in salsa bands, timbales, congas, and have that represent more of the people. But with this, I said, you know, we can take this a step further. And I talked to my administration about this. And coincidentally, this college actually got a grant for being a Hispanic serving institution. And so I took this money from this grant and contracted using the internet through Skype, through iChat, and brought some of the Grammy Award winning artists that are the professionals in New York and Boston that are at the top of the game to work with my band every other week, teaching these, I'm sorry to say, a bunch of gringos to sound like Latin musicians. And let me tell you, Latin music, for a person who never grew up hearing it, is one of the hardest things to do. Where your beat one, where you think it's supposed to be beat one, it's actually beat four. So people are tripping all over themselves. So with this idea of bringing the communities together through music, I said, hey, let's make some community outreach too. Let's start a festival, invite some of these artists that we used in the internet to Yakima, and have them go out to the different K through 12 schools, the primary schools, the little niños, all the way up to the high schools, where we went out for a full week doing hands-on workshops with these students, teaching them about their culture, teaching them to be accepting of another culture, but also be inspired by this Latino culture, this rich Latino culture in this valley. And one of the things that being a teacher in that area for a couple years before I got this job, is students, especially Hispanic students, are taught, forget your Hispanic culture. You're an American now. You need to speak English. You need to forget about your culture, because you now live in the United States. And to me, that breaks my heart. But the beautiful thing that I started seeing is once these students started using these, being a part of this Latin culture, dancing, playing the rhythms, being a part of the band, they started going, wait a second. I'm Latino. This is my heritage. I'm proud to be a Latino. And through music, this not only empowered the student to believe in their culture, it also started empowering them to succeed in school, to get better grades, to work harder, and because they found a group of people that could work together as a whole. And that's really what music is about, is a group of people going together in one vision. So going through this festival, it became a huge hit with the community. And there was a partner that came out and reached out to me and said, hey, we'd like to work with you. And did you know that we are the Yakima Morelia Sister City Association? That there's an actually sister city tie between Yakima and Morelia. And it was light bulbs went off because just like as you saw before, there was a Day of the Dead presentation. For the past 10 years, there's been students from the Conservatorio de las Rosas going to Yakima, performing with the Yakima Symphony, and being a soloist representing their culture. So I said, this is great. Let's get involved. And through meetings through the Conservatorio de las Rosas, through a group here called Genesis group, we started doing intercambios where I would come down for festivals. I performed at the Jazz Festival, the International Music Festival, but also we would invite artists, and not just musicians. We'd invite mural artists. We invited folkloric dancers. So every year, this Latin music celebration, and I'm going to ask them to start the video in the background so you can get some visuals while I'm talking about this. This Latin music celebration grew into, in 2015, our last year, we invited 16 guest artists for over a week of outreach. We had community choirs, we had community drum circles, we had community folkloric dancing, we had mariachi bands, we had son jarocho, we had salsa music going on. And what I saw after 10 years of doing this festival, the community came together, and not only did they love this music, it's something that they looked forward to, and they came together as a community, using music. Another powerful moment, I remember going out to a school in White Swan, Washington, and this was another unique school that was 90% Native American, or 90% Puepachev, if you translate that. And we went out with the professional band after doing some workshops, and we asked the students, how many of you guys ever been to a live concert? 90% of the audience raised their hands. Imagine that. 90% of the students in the school had never seen live music before. And through this, not only did we teach these students, hey, music is something that can bring these different cultures together, these same students became guest soloists and shared the same stage as the professional musicians that we brought in all over the world. We had a mass choir of over 300 students, some of them ranging from 6 years old to 10 years old to high school students. We had drummers, djembe drummers combining the African rhythms and the Latino rhythms together of over 40 people, Brazilian drummers going through. And this festival became something that the community came together and loved. So fast forward to last year. Be that change that you want to be. In my heart, I wanted to go one step further. So I applied for a sabbatical from my college and said, I want to move to Morelia for a year and teach here, and do exactly what I did in Yakima. So I started a Latin jazz big band at the Conservatorio de las Rosas. Seeing these students here in Morelia, now coming from the opposite end of it, going, learning about this American music, but still having their culture, their Latino culture, be part of this music, was that connection. They also laughed at me so much because last year was the first time I started learning Spanish. So my students in the band became my teachers. Every rehearsal I had, I made it a goal to learn 3 new words. And that I made sure the band, they would stop me even from directing to correct me. And that crossed that bridge, that broke that. These students became a culture with me. They came a culture with the United States, came a culture with music. And what I loved about seeing in this, the music brought people together. Every concert that we did, we played at the Jazz Festival, we played at the UNAM Cultural Center, packed houses, and just seeing the smiles on everybody's faces. Music can bridge cultures. And my mission now is to do that same thing here in Morelia. I found out that Mexico only has 3 universities that has a jazz program. And so my next mission for my personal message, be that change you want to be, is I want to help create the 4th jazz program here in Michoacan. And thank you, yeah. And because this is music, and I want to share with you, I've been playing with some professional musicians and students that have been part of this Latin jazz ensemble at the Conservatorio. They're not students anymore. They didn't have to be a part of it, but they also believed in jazz education and also the power of music. And they came and volunteered their time with this ensemble. And so I'd like to invite some of these musicians out and to play a composition that's very dear to my heart, because it was something I composed after my first interchange with Morelia. And I remember it very dearly because it was performed out in Jardín de las Rosas, where the beautiful cafes are. So I would like to invite the band out to perform Jardín de las Rosas for you.